Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees, the podcast. Well, Happy New Year. Happy 2023. And since we're in a new year, I figured it would be a great idea to go back. So this episode, we're going to go back to the past to the 1952 World Series, which was a highly contested battle between two teams that, again, were pretty evenly matched. It was the New York Yankees over the Brooklyn Dodgers in 7 games. Again, the Yankees were able to squeak it out there 4-3 and actually had to come back, stave off elimination in Game 6. To tie the series and then win in Game 7 there. So maybe don't know too much about this World Series. It's maybe not one of the more infamous in Yankee lore. Can you always look back to maybe 56 instead with Don Lawson's perfect game, or maybe 77 with Reggie Jackson's 3 home runs, or even like a losing effort like Bill Mazeroski hitting that walk-off home run in Game 7 in 1960 for the Pittsburgh Pirates to stun the Yankees there. So the good or the bad. But this 52 World Series kind of flies under the radar a little bit. So kind of want to bring it to your attention. Maybe, some factoids about it you don't know. So kind of go over that. So before we, go back into the time machine, make sure you start a New Year resolution, subscribe to this podcast. So wherever you're listening right now, there's got to be a subscribe button, a follow button, something. Hit that and get notified when new content comes out. Again, it's not only Yankee history, of course. We talk about the modern Yankees, but also go off the menu a little bit. Little side thing, little player profiles once in a while, little history lessons there, little games and knickknacks. So make sure I want to be part of all of that. Still have some off-season stuff coming up as well. And of course, before you have pitches and catches going to spring training there. So get all of it by subscribing to the podcast and start that new year resolution by subscribing. You'll lose like 50 pounds, 100 pounds guaranteed. So, not too long ago, I saw, I'm sure you saw this image as well. It was kind of a highlight reel of, it was black and white, and it was of Billy Martin kind of running in the infield there. It was a sky-high pop-up, and he kind of comes running in, charging in there to catch the ball on a shoestring catch there. Probably that, even though it's a defensive play, that's probably the most iconic play of this 1952 World Series, to just show you how it is. So, usually always thinking for a big home run is the highlight there. And you always just kind of look at some of these images in Yankee history, whether it's John Wetland jumping up in the 96 one there after the Charlie Hayes catch there in Game 6, after the Yankees had like a drought since 78, not winning a World Series there and not appearing in one since 81 there. So it's just kind of funny that this catch was probably the big highlight. And it's not really as infamous as like, the Willie Mays over the shoulder catch, from the 54 World Series there. This one, just kind of a shoestring catch, but it was a big play at the time in Game 7 there, to preserve the Yankee lead. And again, ultimately, the Yankees were able to squeak that one out there on the road. So I'm going to kind of get to lay the land there, give you the backdrop of this World Series. Now, it will be the first time the Yankees would be without Joe DiMaggio, so he retired after the 51 World Series. And this would also be the first full World Series for Mickey Mantle. Now, Mantle was a rookie in 51, and of course, a teammate of Joe DiMaggio, but it was that Game 2 in the 5th inning there where Mantle tore his knee. So kind of a, I guess in Yankee, the history books maybe, or at least the Yankee mythology, sort of a little bit of a cold relationship there between Joe D and Mantle, the two Yankee icons. So basically, supposedly there was a ball hit between them. Mantle kind of held up a little bit for in favor of the senior big shot there, Joe DiMaggio there, and by Mantle holding up there, supposedly he twisted his knee in a storm drain out there, tore his knee out, and was done for the rest of that series and the season. Bad injury for Mantle. Now, the Yankees did win that World Series against their other crosstown rivals, the New York Giants. And, again, since then, of course, Mantle, had a great Hall of Fame career, but they always said that injury was just kind of, the Yankees never got to see, or at least the Yankee fans never got to see the true Mickey Mantle, who not only had the power and the switch hitting, but was also a speed demon. But of course, with that injury, kind of Mantle was hampered a little bit. Now, again, he was able to cover a lot of ground there at the center field and run the bases well in the 50s. But again, never really, he was never up to his full 100% potential there, just because with that knee injury. And then by the middle to late 60s, and I'm sure you saw those, those images of Mantle kind of limping around, and that, that injury really took its toll, where the final couple of years he was really hobbled there and kind of needed to be, underneath his uniform there was all bandaged up around his ankles and knees there, just because that injury there. So kind of stuck with Mantle his entire career. And again, that was supposedly part of the rift between DiMaggio and Mantle there for many years after into their retirement. But again, Mantle was able to play this finally the 52 World Series, and again contributed with a couple of home runs, and I'll get into that in a moment. So with this World Series, the Brooklyn Dodgers and the Yankees, these are two teams that probably as pretty much as tightly contested as you're going to get. Very formidable matchup. Now, Brooklyn came in with a regular series record, 2 games better than the Yankees, but again, very close to these two teams. Brooklyn 96-57, and the Yankees 95-59. So Brooklyn had one more win and 2 less losses than the New York Yankees, but again, both playing in different leagues there. But both these teams pretty evenly matched up. But since Brooklyn had the better regular season record there, they had the home field advantage. It was in this one, so it was a 2-3-2 format. 2 games at Ebbets Field, 3 games up in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium, and then the final 2 games back down in Brooklyn at Ebbets Field. And also interesting about this World Series, it started on October 1st. That was game 1, and it went consecutive. So there was no off days in this one. So game 1 was October 1st, game 2 October 2nd, so forth and so forth until October 7th, which was game 7. So no off days for these pitches. And probably, I guess, maybe the most surprising performance out of this whole thing would be the performance of Ali Reynolds. I've heard that name before, as being a Yankee fan, but never realized how important he was, and definitely for this season, this series, he was doing it all, really. Relief, closing games, starting games, and again, at the end of this episode, you'll actually realize how important Ali Reynolds was for the series for the Yankees. Now, Reynolds did not get the MVP. That would go to Johnny Mize. But after, again, I kind of break this all down for you, you'll probably maybe look back and say, really should have been Ali Reynolds. But I guess it's a different time. They're not really going to, very unlikely give it to pitchers there, even though he did play a lot. Again, he got no days off, no breaks. He had some days off, but again, not built-in off days like you would see in these days, where they kind of have sometimes a day off in between a World Series game, definitely a day off as teams move to a different city. But it's not the case. Now, it could have been just because the Yankees and Brooklyn are both, in New York, so they're basically, an hour drive from each other. So that, that makes it a little bit easier. But still, the game at that point of the season, you played a long season, 150 something games there, and now you're at the end there, and you still, your body's probably beat up, but still you got to go out there and perform 7 games in a row there. So the first game, it was game 1 was again at Ebbets Field there. And it was between Joe Black and that very same Ali Reynolds I mentioned, but it'll be Joe Black who would get the better of Reynolds, and Brooklyn would take the first game by the score of 4-2. Now, Joe Black would get the win in this game, and in this win, he was an African-American player. He became the first African-American pitcher in World Series history to win a World Series game there. So the first African-American to win a World Series game there. So kind of a historic moment there, a milestone for Major League Baseball. Of course, about 5 years before that, Jackie Robinson, his teammate, broke the color barrier there in 47. But the Yankees at this point now had fall behind 1-0 there, Brooklyn taking the lead. But in game 2, the Yankees would bounce back, tie the series by the score of 7-1. So the Yankees tying the series there, heading back to the Bronx. And in that return to the Bronx there, you would hope maybe the Yankees would have the momentum, but that would not be the case. Brooklyn answers right back on the road, taking game 3 by the score of 5-3. So Brooklyn now reclaiming their lead, 2-1 in the series. Now game 4 was a pitching matchup, a rematch of game 1 between Ali Reynolds and Joe Black. And Joe Black had won game 1. This time Reynolds would get his revenge. Again, this is only on 3 days rest. So game 1 was October 1st. This was October 4th, only 3 games later. Now, in that first game, Reynolds threw 7 innings. In this game, again, only on the 3 days rest there, would throw a complete game, go 9 innings, and shut out the Brooklyn Dodgers, the Yankees, winning that game just by the small score of 2-0. And the Yankees, more importantly, tie the series at that point, 2 games each, heading to game 5 there. And again, it would be the final game in the Bronx before returning to Brooklyn there. But Brooklyn would get the last laugh at Yankee Stadium. It took them extra innings, so that game 5 went to extra innings, went to 11 innings there. In the 11th inning, Brooklyn was able to scratch across a run, and they walk away with a 6-5 win there, and of course then take the series lead 3-2, heading back to Brooklyn, to their own ballpark in front of their fans, even though I'm sure a lot of Yankee fans went down there as well, with the momentum there. And the Yankees now facing elimination, but answer in a big way, tying the series, winning by a score of 3-2. So the Yankees answer back. And just look at some of these scores again, very tight there. Game 4, the Yankees win 2-0. Game 5, Brooklyn squeaks out a win there, 6-5. And then game 6, the Yankees win just 3-2. So very tight. Again, both these teams are really tightly tightly, evenly matched up there. But the interesting factoid of this one was that same Ali Reynolds, who won Game 4, obviously took off Game 5, but Game 6 came out in the 8th inning to finish out the 8th and then pitched the 9th. So actually, Ali Reynolds earning the save there. So how many times do you see a pitcher getting a win and a save in the same series? That just to show you how versatile and valuable he was for him. And again, but more importantly, the Yankees were able to hold off Brooklyn, bring it to a deciding do or die Game 7 for both teams there. And in that Game 7, the Yankees would come out on the road to take it there 4-2. And that was the game I mentioned before the start of this episode where Billy Martin made that infield pop-up, made that shoestring catch on a sky-high, mile-high pop-up in the infield there, which would have been an embarrassment, again, if that would have fallen in. But more importantly, probably could have potentially cost the Yankees the game because Martin makes that catch. And again, that highlight is probably, that footage is probably the highlight of the entire 52 World Series there. Again, we're living in different eras, not a ton of footage of too much stuff there. But luckily, Martin was able to secure the catch. But it was Ali Reynolds who actually got the win in that game. Now, how it happened was Eddie Lopat started for the Yankees in that game, and he only pitched into the 4th inning. So Reynolds actually came out of the bullpen, was able to go 3 innings. So he finished the 4th, pitched the 5th, and of course, since he pitched the 5th and got across with the lead, he was actually able to earn the win there. So Ali Reynolds doing it all, doing starting games, closing games, middle relief, whatever you want this guy to do. He did it during the series. And again, to me, he should have been the MVP, but no, they decided with Johnny Mize with that one. But again, Reynolds very valuable for the Yankees, getting the win there. And again, the Yankees were able to take Game 7 by the score of 4-2 and win the series by a margin of 4-3 there. Again, very, very, very tightly contested battle between the two teams. And if you want to look at, the runs total there, again, that's about even as it can get. Now, between both teams, they scored 46 runs. Brooklyn with a total of 20 runs versus the Yankees 26 runs. So the Yankees scored just 6 runs more than them. But the batting averages were almost identical. So as a team, Brooklyn hit 215. The Yankees hit 216. So it doesn't get any more evenly matched up with that. And I know how people complain about this day. Oh, there's no offense in baseball. At least the pitching's too good in the playoffs and not enough offense. Well, you look back at this 52 World Series. You don't actually have a ton of offense. Maybe the only offense you look at is Game 2. The Yankees scored 7 runs there. And then in Game 5, both teams combined for 11 runs. Brooklyn won 6-5 there. But all the scores are very small. Game 1, 4-2. Game 3, 5-3. Game 4, 2-0. Game 6, 3-2. And even Game 7, 4-2. So it's not like exactly a ton of offense back then either as well in this series. And if you want to look at some of the big stars, some of the big names actually showed up in this one, which is, pretty cool. I mean, how many times do a big series where a star or, big type, all-star type player doesn't really make any noise, but that was not the case for the Yankees. Mantle hit 400 in this one with 2 home runs. Johnny Mize, who I mentioned before, he getting awarded the MVP, hit 3 home runs. Yogi Berra had 3 home runs. And then Gene Woodley, who's Gene Woodley? Maybe you don't know him, but with the Yankees, also contributed a home run. On the other side there, the Duke, again, I guess you say the third big center fielder in New York there. Again, they always say Mantle and Mays, but, got to remember the Duke as well for Brooklyn. He had 4 home runs, and then Brooklyn also got a home run each from 2 other big name players, Pee Wee Reese and of course the aforementioned Jackie Robinson. Each, again, Pee Wee and Jackie each hitting home run of their own. But Ali Reynolds, to me, again, at the end of this, from just kind of doing the research, came as the most impressive for me. Participated in 4 games, started 2 of them, came out of the pen twice, and one of them in a save effort. Had a record of 2-1 in the series through a total of 20.1 innings. Gave up 12 hits, only 4 runs total, so it's pretty impressive. All 4 runs were earned, 6 walks, 18 strikeouts, and a very impressive ERA of 1.77. So to me, that's the man of the series for the Yankees. Is nicknamed the Chief. Now, he came up originally with the Cleveland Indians, as they were called back then. Had 1 championship with them in 48, and then 5 with the Yankees. So, not a long career, but, 6 World Series total, not too shabby there. 6-time also. Now, Reynolds is not a Hall of Fame pitcher. His lifetime record, 182, 107. Only pitched in 13 seasons there. So, obviously it's a different area where you judge pitches there. So, he didn't even get 200 wins. So, by the standards back then, the way this pitches through a lot. If you didn't get close to 300 wins, it's pretty hard to be considered there. And the ERA, a little on the high side, 3.30 for his career. I guess now you would take someone with a 3.30 ERA, but back then, I guess that would be considered high. So not a Hall of Fame pitcher, but again, had a really good career for the Yankees. And again, we want to talk about, people freaking out. When he came up, when he played with the 48 Indians, the World Series that year was, get this one, was the Cleveland Indians over the Boston Braves. So two Native American named teams there going at each other there in the 48 World Series. I mean, you can just imagine that happening now. People just go nuts. Just to show you that, different era we're living in now, and of course, different era back then, again with no days off in between the World Series games. So that's the 52 World Series. Don't you find that interesting? Again, maybe you want to look at some of this closer. Maybe look at the Ali Reynolds. He's maybe not as known as Whitey Ford. You don't look at him as a Whitey Ford or Ron Guidry, or the way you look at Catfish Hunter or Andy Pettit, El Duque. But Reynolds coming up big for this, at least this 52 World Series there. So that's the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Like I mentioned, there's plenty to go here. So again, we not only talk about some old Yankees, but of course, more importantly, the 2023 Yankees. And I'm sure there's a lot more stuff going on there. So make sure if there's a subscribe button in front of you, make sure you hit that if you haven't done it already. Get notified when new content goes up. Still have some more off-season to go. And again, as I mentioned before you know it, will be pitches and catches this, go to spring training, a lot more stuff to analyze. And of course, during the way, as being a content subscriber, again, you get these little exclusive, little extra credit things, such as this little look back at the 1952 World Series. I also do some player profiles, little side stories, just, maybe personal stories as being a Yankee fan, going to Yankee games, or just kind of being around as a fan, whatnot. All the stuff, it's exclusive for podcast subscribers. So, yes, I'm on YouTube and certain TV channels in certain parts of the New York area. But again, this podcast is just for you audio podcast subscribers. So you can't get anywhere else. So make sure you subscribe. Catch you next time.